It was a cold evening in New York City. The lights of Manhattan glowed against the glass walls of the Royalton Hotel. Inside the ballroom, hundreds of powerful people were gathered: business leaders, investors, and media. Everyone was talking about one woman, Amara Lewis, the 34-year-old CEO of a fast-growing tech company called Lumitech. Amara was known for her calm power. She had built her company from nothing. Years ago, she was just a young woman with a laptop and a dream. Now her company was about to sign a $900 million deal with the Sterling family, one of the richest white families in America. Everyone expected this deal to change her life and to make history. A black woman leading a tech company, closing one of the biggest deals of the decade. The dinner was meant to celebrate their partnership. Cameras flashed as Amara entered the hall in a simple black dress. She didn't wear expensive jewelry or designer brands. Her confidence was her crown. At the head of the long table sat Richard Sterling, the billionaire patriarch of the Sterling family. He was old money-polished shoes, silver hair, and a cold smile that never reached his eyes. His wife, Eleanor Sterling, sat beside him, her pearls shining brighter than her expression. Their sons, Andrew and Michael, whispered and laughed quietly, glancing at Amara. As Amara took her seat, she noticed their eyes, judging, watching, but she stayed calm. This was not new to her. She had faced worse. The dinner began with polite talk about markets and profits. Amara spoke confidently about Lumitech's new software, a system that could revolutionize online security. Richard listened, but with an almost bored look. Finally, he leaned back in his chair and said, "So, Amara, where exactly did you learn all this? You didn't go to Harvard, did you?" The question was sharp, like a knife hidden in a smile. The table went quiet. Amara smiled softly and replied, "No, I didn't. I learned from experience and from failure." Some guests nodded in respect, but Richard laughed a slow, heavy laugh that echoed across the hall. "Ah, experience," he said. "That's what people say when they don't have the right education." Few people forced smiles. Amara stayed silent. Her eyes met his, calm but cold. Eleanor Sterling added softly, "You must be proud, though. Coming this far from where you started." The tone was polite, but everyone could hear the hidden meaning. Amara felt her heart beating fast, but she didn't show it. She had learned long ago, never let them see you break. Then Andrew Sterling, the younger son, leaned forward and said with a grin, "So tell me, Amara, how does it feel to be the only one of your kind in a room like this?" The air froze. Someone dropped a fork. Cameras turned away. Even the waiters stopped moving. Amara took a deep breath. Her voice was soft but firm. "It feels exactly the same as it would for anyone else who worked hard to earn their place." "Of course," he said, taking a sip of his wine. "Just asking." Richard Sterling clapped his hands once and laughed again. "Relax, everyone. We're just joking." "Don't be so sensitive," Amara smiled. But inside, something cracked. The humiliation was quiet, but deep. It wasn't the words. It was the tone, the smirks, the laughter, the message that no matter how much she achieved, they still saw her as less. But Amara didn't argue. She just picked up her glass, raised it slightly, and said, "Two partnerships built on respect." The table went silent again. For a moment, no one moved. Then Richard forced a smile. "Of course," he said. They drank. The dinner continued, but the mood had changed. In that moment, deep inside, Amara made a silent promise. If they ever tried to humiliate her again, she would make sure they regretted it. Not with anger, but with power. That night, as she left the ballroom, the cold air hit her face. She looked up at the tall buildings around her, symbols of power and control. She whispered to herself, "This deal will not go the way they think." And from that moment, everything began to change. The night after the dinner, Amara could not sleep. The laughter of the Sterlings echoed in her mind like an old song that refused to fade. She replayed every word, every smirk, every false smile, for the world. The dinner had been a success, a celebration before signing a $900 million deal. But for Amara, it was something else. It was a reminder that even in the highest rooms, respect was still something she had to fight for. She sat by the window of her apartment, watching the city lights. The streets below were alive with sound, cars, music, voices, but inside her home, it was quiet. Her assistant Maya called to check on her. "Amara, everyone's talking about the deal. You did it. You should be proud." Amara smiled faintly. "Yes, Maya, we did it. But something doesn't feel right." Maya didn't understand. Not yet. She thought it was just stress. But Amara knew better. Her instincts had saved her before, and they were warning her again. The next morning, Amara walked into the Lumitech office. The employees greeted her with excitement. The walls were covered with photos of their journey, from a small garage office to a global company. Her team adored her. She was not just their boss, she was their leader, their protector. She gathered her senior team in the conference room. "Before we sign anything," she said, "I want a full audit of the Sterling partnership, every clause, every number. No assumptions." Her CFO, a calm man named Jordan, frowned. "Amara, the Sterling's lawyers already sent us the final contract. It's all good. We're just waiting for your signature." Amara shook her head. "Then let's make sure it's really all good." For the next few days, her office became a war room. Piles of documents, endless emails, late-night meetings. Amara read every line herself. She noticed small things, phrases that seemed harmless but weren't clauses that gave the Sterlings quiet. Power over Lumitech's patents. They wanted control. Quietly, slowly, legally. By the third night, Amara was sure this deal wasn't just unfair. It was a trap, but she didn't react with anger. Instead, she grew calm, colder. Her silence was dangerous now, like the moment before a storm breaks. While others celebrated, she prepared her move. 3 days later, she received a call from Richard Sterling. His voice was smooth, confident. "Amara, my dear, the press is waiting. Are you ready for the big announcement?" Amara replied softly, almost, "I just need one more meeting with you and your lawyers." "In person," Richard chuckled. "Of course. We'll host you again at our estate." That Sunday evening, Amara arrived at the Sterling mansion, a place built to show wealth, not warmth. Marble floors, gold mirrors, walls filled with old paintings of men who had inherited power, not earned it. The family was already waiting. Richard stood near the fireplace with his usual smirk. Eleanor sat beside him, sipping wine. Andrew and Michael whispered near the piano. "So," Richard said, "ready to make history together?" Amara placed her black briefcase on the table. "Yes," she said. "But before that, I want to clear something up." She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were highlighted pages from the contract, the hidden clauses. "I believe these are not part of what we agreed," she said calmly. "They transfer patent ownership to your holding company, not to Lumitech." Richard's smile faded. "Those are standard clauses," he said quickly. "You don't need to worry about the legal side. That's our department." Amara looked him straight in the eyes. "No," she said quietly. "It's my company. It's my department." For the first time, the room went silent. Andrew tried to speak. "Look, Miss Lewis," Amara interrupted softly. "It's Ms. Lewis, and if you think you can buy me or my work, you're wrong." Richard stepped forward, angry now. "Do you realize what you're doing? This deal could make you rich beyond your dreams." Amara smiled. "I already am. Rich in self-respect." She closed the folder and stood up. "The deal is off," Eleanor gasped. "You can't be serious." "Very serious," Amara said, walking toward the door. "And soon, so will the world." As she left the mansion, Richard shouted after her, "You'll regret this." Amara didn't look back. Her car door closed, the engine started, and she whispered to herself, "No, you will." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The storm had begun. The next morning, news broke like wildfire. $900 million tech deal collapses. Black CEO walks away from Sterling Empire. Every major newspaper, website, and TV channel was talking about Amara Lewis. Some called her bold. Others called her foolish. Inside her office, the mood was tense. Employees whispered in corners. Investors called nonstop. Stocks dropped. Emails flooded in from confused partners. Amara stood in front of the large glass window, watching the city. Behind her, Jordan, the CFO, spoke nervously. Amara, the board is panicking. The Sterlings are blaming you. They're saying you violated confidentiality and backed out without warning. Amara turned slowly. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. They're trying to destroy my name because they can't control me. But we'll fight facts with truth. Jordan sighed. They have money, media, and power. We have just us. Amara smiled faintly. That's all I need. Later that day, she got an email from an unknown address. The subject line said, "You made a mistake, Amara." She opened it. Inside were screenshots of fake messages, things she never said, contracts she never signed. Someone was trying to frame her. The Sterlings had begun their counterattack. Within hours. Online headlines changed tone. Was Lumitech's CEO difficult to work with? Sources claim Amara Lewis misled investors. Her phone rang endlessly, but she ignored it. She had seen this game before, powerful people trying to silence the one who stood up. Still, it hurt. She had spent years building her reputation, working twice as hard for half the credit. And now, in just 2 days, they were trying to take it all away. That night, Amara drove alone to the riverfront. The water shimmered under the streetlights. She sat in her car, remembering her journey, sleeping in her car when Lumitech started, eating instant noodles, coding until sunrise. She had built everything from nothing, she whispered to herself. They can't break what they didn't build. The next morning, she returned to the office with a new fire in her eyes. Her assistant Maya looked at her worriedly. They're saying on TV that you were unstable? That you yelled at investors. Amara chuckled. Let them talk. It's noise. We'll answer with results. She gathered her team. We're not stopping. We're improving our software, launching new updates, and showing the world why they needed us, not the other way around. Her voice was firm, powerful. For the first time in days, her team smiled. But the Sterlings weren't done. 2 weeks later, they hosted a press conference. Richard Sterling stood proudly in front of flashing cameras and said, "We regret that the partnership failed due to Ms. Lewis's emotional decisions. We wish her well." It was a public insult, polite on the surface, poisonous underneath. That same night, Amara received a message from a journalist named Eli Carter, who worked for the Financial Herald. "I think you should know," he wrote. "Someone leaked internal Lumitech files to the media from inside your company." Amara froze. Inside her company? Someone was betraying her. She spent the next few nights reviewing access logs and emails. Then she found it an employee who had joined 6 months ago, secretly linked to Sterling Enterprises. Betrayal right under her nose. Amara didn't react with anger. She simply called security, had the employee escorted out quietly, and said only, "Tell Mr. Sterling, I appreciate his persistence." But something had changed inside her. She was no longer trying to survive. She was planning. The next week, she met Eli Carter in a quiet cafe. He was young but sharp. "I've been following your story," he said. "There's something off about the Sterling's business deals. You're not the first person they've humiliated publicly." Mara listened carefully. "Can you prove it?" He nodded slowly. "I can if you help me." Mara smiled for the first time in weeks. "You'll have everything you need." She shook his hand and stood up. "It's time to stop being their story. It's time to write my own." As she walked out of the cafe, sun broke through the clouds, a quiet symbol of what was coming. Amara Lewis was no longer the woman they humiliated. She was becoming the woman they would fear. The real war had just begun. The cafe meeting with Eli Carter changed everything. For the first time in weeks, Amara felt something new. Control. Eli wasn't just any journalist. He had been investigating the Sterling family for months. He knew about their hidden partnerships, offshore accounts, and the quiet destruction of smaller companies. But no one had ever dared to go public against them until now. Amara agreed to help, not with revenge in mind, but with justice. If we expose them, she told Eli, we won't just save my company, we'll show the world who they really are. Over the next few days, Eli and Amara worked in secret. They met late at night in quiet cafes and parking lots, speaking in low voices, sharing files and evidence. Eli brought leaked documents. Amara brought internal reports from her own legal team. Together, they began connecting dots. One night, as Eli flipped through old financial records, he looked up and said, they've been buying failing companies, taking their patents and then pushing the owners out. It's a pattern. Amara leaned closer. And now, they tried to do the same to me. Eli nodded. Exactly. But this time, they picked the wrong person. Outside, thunder rolled again, as if the storm from before had returned to witness what was coming. Days turned into weeks. Amara played her role perfectly. In public, she stayed silent, calm, almost invisible. The media thought she had lost. Investors thought she was finished. But behind the scenes, she was building something stronger. Maya, her loyal assistant, began to notice the change. You're planning something, she said one evening, watching Amara study files. Amara smiled. I'm preparing something. Can I help? Maya asked. Yes, Amara replied softly. But once we start, there's no turning back. Eli's investigation grew bigger. He found emails between the Sterlings and government officials, secret donations, hidden favors, and even threats. But what caught Amara's attention was one document, an old deal between Sterling Enterprises and a small D.O. African tech firm. The firm had gone bankrupt right after signing with the Sterlings. Its founder had disappeared. This is more than business, Amara whispered. This is power abuse, Eli nodded, and you have the voice to expose it. Amara looked out the window. Then let's give them a voice they can't silence. A week later, Eli's article dropped. The Hidden Empire, Inside the Sterling Family's Secret Deals. It was everywhere, television, newspapers, and social media. The story was explosive. The report accused the Sterling family of manipulating markets, exploiting smaller companies, and using media influence to bury their crimes. At first, the Sterlings laughed it off. Richard called a press conference. These are lies spread by a failed CEO and an ambitious journalist, he said with fake confidence. But this time the world didn't believe him. People began digging deeper. Other business owners came forward. Old scandals resurfaced. Within days, the Sterling name, once a symbol of wealth and power, became a trending headline for corruption. Inside her office, Mara watched the news silently. Her employees gathered behind her, speechless. For the first time in months, they were proud again. Jordan, her CFO, said quietly, "You did it." Mara turned, her voice steady. "No, we did it. Truth did it." But Amara wasn't celebrating yet. She knew the Sterlings wouldn't go down quietly. That night, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "You think this is over?" "We still own everything you care about." Mara stared at the message for a long time. Then she smiled, not out of fear, but out of understanding. She typed back, "You own the deal, not me. And now, you own your downfall." She put the phone away, closed her laptop, and looked out at the city lights. For the first time in her life, she felt peace. Not because the fight was over, but because she was no longer afraid to fight. At dawn, she walked into the Lumitech headquarters. The office was quiet, but full of life again. Her employees stood as she entered, clapping softly. Maya handed her a coffee and said, "What now?" Amara smiled, eyes shining. "Now," she said, "we build something they can't destroy, a legacy." Us. As the sun rose higher, painting the city gold. Amara Lewis stood tall, not as a victim, not as a headline, but as a leader who had turned humiliation into history, and somewhere in a dark mansion across town, Richard Sterling watched the news, his hands trembling with rage. The empire he thought was untouchable had finally begun to crumble. The storm had calmed for only a moment, and then it struck again. After Eli's explosive article, the world was on Amara's side. Social media praised her courage. Talk shows invited her to speak. Investors who once doubted her now wanted meetings. Lumitech's value began to rise again. But Amara knew peace never lasts long when powerful people are embarrassed. 3 days later, a new headline appeared. Lumitech under investigation for fraud. Amara read it twice, stunned. The article accused her company of misusing investor funds and falsifying patents. The source? Anonymous. But Amara didn't need to guess. It had the Sterling's fingerprints all over it. Inside the Lumitech office, chaos erupted. Employees whispered. Reporters camped outside the building. Clients froze new contracts. Jordan rushed into Amara's office. This is serious. The government's already asking for documents. Amara stood by her desk, silent for a moment. They're trying to bury us, she said softly. If they can't win the truth, they'll destroy the stage we stand on. She looked up. Call the legal team. And tell Eli, it's time for part 2. That evening, Amara met Eli in an underground parking garage, away from cameras. He looked worried. They're pushing a federal case, he said. They've paid people to testify against you. Fake records, fake witnesses, everything. Amara folded her arms. Let them. Lies fall faster than truth rises, but truth always stands in the end. Eli sighed. You're calm for someone under fire. Amara smiled faintly. Because this isn't the first time I've been underestimated. Over the next week, Amara faced interviews, hearings, and constant pressure. Her every move was on the news. They called her arrogant, too ambitious, a woman who couldn't handle power, yet she never raised her voice. She never cried in public. She kept building silently. She gathered her small circle, Maya, Jordan, and 2 trusted engineers. We're going to show them what Lumitech really is, she said. Not a company, a movement. They began preparing a global demo, a public launch of their most advanced technology yet, LumaShield, a cybersecurity system designed to protect companies from online fraud. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She was being accused of fraud while building a tool to stop it. The day of the demo came. Hundreds of journalists filled the hall. Amara stood on stage, dressed in white, calm, confident. She began, a few weeks ago. They said I didn't belong in the room. Then they said I didn't deserve my success. Now they say I cheated. But what they don't understand is that truth doesn't need to shout. She paused. The crowd was silent. Truth just needs time and proof. Then she activated the system. The screens behind her lit up, showing real-time data, LumaShield detecting false transactions, revealing how easily systems could be manipulated. Then came the twist. Amara clicked another button, and the data revealed a hidden trail, fake accounts linked directly to Sterling Enterprises. Gasps filled the room. Reporters rushed to take pictures. The system had traced their manipulation live. During the presentation, Richard Sterling, watching from his mansion, turned pale. By the time the demo ended, the internet had exploded. Amara Lewis exposes Billionaire fraud live. Hours later, Amara sat in her office. The phones rang nonstop. Eli called. You did it. That was genius. Amara smiled. No, Eli, they did it. They built their own trap. I just turned on the light. Maya entered with a trembling voice. The government just dropped the investigation. They found no evidence. You're clear. Amara took a deep breath. Good. Now we finish this the right way. She opened her laptop and began drafting a public letter. In it, she thanked her team, her supporters, and everyone who stood for truth. But she ended with one final line. Power without integrity is temporary. Respect without humility is fragile. You can't destroy what's built on truth. She hit send. Within minutes, the letter went viral. Millions shared it. The world now saw Amara not as a victim, but as a visionary. That night, in the Sterling mansion, Richard smashed a glass against the wall. His son stood silent. Eleanor whispered, "She's ruined us." Richard clenched his jaw. "No, not yet. If she wants a war, she'll get one." But deep inside, he knew the war was already lost and far away. Amara watched the skyline, her reflection glowing against the glass. The city that once tried to humiliate her now whispered her name with respect. The comeback was complete, but the final reckoning was still to come. A month had passed since. The live demo that shook the world, Lumitech's name was now written in gold across every major business magazine. Amara Lewis had gone from the woman who lost a deal to the CEO who changed the game. Investors lined up. Governments called for meetings. Universities began teaching her strategy as a case study. But while the world celebrated her victory, Amara wasn't done. In her quiet office overlooking the city, she stared at a single folder on her desk. It was labeled Sterling Final Report. Inside were the last pieces of evidence files Eli had helped uncover. Proof of years of corruption, tax fraud, bribery, human rights violations, and stolen intellectual property. Amara opened the folder slowly. Every page was another reason not to forgive. Maya entered, holding coffee. "They're finished already," she said softly. "Why not let it go?" Amara looked up. "Because people like them don't stop until someone teaches them how it feels to lose everything they don't deserve." That afternoon, she called Eli. "It's time," she said simply. They met at a news studio downtown. The producers greeted Amara like a hero. She was about to go live on national television for the first time since the scandal began. The topic: power and accountability. As the cameras rolled, the host smiled. "Ms. Lewis, you've become a symbol of strength. What message do you want to give today?" Amara smiled gently, her voice calm and clear. "Power is not the problem," she began. "The problem is when power forgets responsibility. When people use their privilege to silence others, that's when power becomes poison." She paused, then looked straight at the camera. "I was humiliated once in a room full of people who thought my voice didn't matter. But what they didn't know is that silence can also be a weapon if you use it at the right time." The studio went silent. The audience leaned closer. Amara continued, "And today I want to show you something." She held up a flash drive, the same one that held the Sterling documents. The screen behind her lit up with images, reports, hidden transactions, all verified by authorities. "These are not rumors," she said softly. "These are facts. And facts don't need permission to exist." Within hours, the broadcast spread worldwide. By evening, the Sterling mansion was surrounded by reporters. Government officials announced an official investigation into Sterling Enterprises. Arrest warrants followed, first for their lawyers, then for executives, and finally for Richard Sterling himself. The empire had fallen. Inside his mansion, Richard sat alone, staring at his reflection in a broken mirror. His eyes were cold and lost. For the first time, he wasn't the man in control. He was the man exposed. Meanwhile, in her apartment, Amara watched the news quietly. No celebration, no champagne, just silence. Eli called. "It's over. They're done." Amara nodded slowly. "No," she said. "It's just beginning for everyone who thought people like me couldn't win." A few weeks later, Amara stood on a stage at a global leadership summit. She wore a white suit, her hair tied back, her posture straight. Thousands of people listened as she spoke. "When I started, they said I was too young. Then they said I was too black. Then they said I was too ambitious. But I learned something. Their words don't define your worth, your choices do." She smiled, eyes shining under the lights. "And my choice was to stand tall when they tried to make me small." The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some even crying. At the back of the hall, Maya whispered to Eli, "She did it. She really did." Eli smiled. "She didn't just win," he said. "She changed the game." That night, Amara returned to her office. The city lights glittered below like stars that had fallen to earth. She opened her balcony door, feeling the wind against her face. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You may have beaten us, but you'll never be one of us." Amara smiled gently and typed back, "Good. I never wanted to be." She looked up at the sky, calm and free. The same woman who was once humiliated at a golden dinner table is now the one rewriting the rules of power. No more silence. No more fear. Just truth shining brighter than all the lies that tried to bury it. And so, the woman they tried to break became the story they could never forget.